You've got a newborn and you want to make sure that child grows up to be the very best adult that he or she could possibly be. Not someone who's suspicious, doesn't trust others, and has difficulty in a relationship, is perhaps very jealous when there doesn't appear to be any reason to have that jealousy. Basically, a person who just doesn't trust. Perhaps you know someone like that. Perhaps you are someone like that. Perhaps you wonder, how do people get to be like that? I'm Nana G, and I'd like to share with you a bit of psychosocial development theories that may or may not help you understand something about why people are trusting, some of them very much so, and others not at all. You see, as a registered nurse for more than 40 years and someone who's been on the earth for more than 70, I have studied child psychology a great deal, and I have watched children grow into parents who have parented their children. And I've seen generations, and I have been able to make connections between what I know academically and what I've seen among the people that I know intimately. And what I'd like to do in this video, a tip for parents, is just give you some food for thought, perhaps open you up to something you may have learned in your education in a psychology course, but forgotten now that you are where you are, either about to be a parent or a parent, but certainly an adult or living here on the earth. We're all still going through what Erik Erikson called the 8 stages of psychosocial development. Erikson and Manslow are 2 of my very favorites among many theorists who talk about why we are who we are and how we got to be there and what the influences may have been. And while there's certainly not an absolute answer because each of us is very different, there are certain guidelines that we use, say in nursing. For example, if you are a nurse and you're caring for a toddler, obviously you can't use the same approaches and language that you use for a teenager or an adult. People have different levels of understanding and different things that they're going to be going through at different stages. Now, how does this relate to your baby? Because you want to get to the tips that I have for you, I'm sure. Specifically, this tip that I want to talk about today is something that I often talk to parents who are having their second baby. You see, they have a toddler at home, somewhere between ages 2 and 3. That's how children sometimes are spaced, to give mom and dad a chance to get one going and then start the next. And that one at home has been the queen or king of the universe. Everything has been about them. And they are in a different stage of development, the second of Erikson's 8 stages, and they are in autonomy and shame versus doubt. In other words, what they're trying to do is show their independence from you as their parents, who've been their major influence, and do things. But they still have been an only child up until this point, and they have been the center of their world and everyone's that they know. Now, you have the newborn who is coming in, and the newborn is from infancy to 1 year. And that child is about trust and mistrust. That child needs to have its needs met by parents. And what are the needs? The need for shelter, the need for food, the need for security, to know that it's being taken care of, that it's not being abandoned. Now, I can tell you, having been doing this for a number of years, I've seen a lot of schools of thought come and go on this. In fact, I know myself. I have said to people, don't be holding that baby all the time. It's going to be a lap baby, and who's going to hold it when you're not here? Some of you may have heard that. You have to put the baby in the crib. You have to let the baby just cry and learn to take care of itself, because that's the way it's going to be independent. I've come to realize, as I became a lactation consultant particularly, and studied more psychology, that in the first year, in infancy, a child is developing what Erik Erikson, the author of the book called Childhood and Society, names as the first and initial stage. When those needs are met, the need for food, shelter, clothing, and being comforted when they're going through a bad time, this is considered a crisis. When they get help in this crisis, then they develop trust. People who are trying to put the child over there in the very first year and not give it a lot of support and attention think that what they're doing is causing independence. But it's been my observation, and it's validated by what Erikson says when he talks about this stage, is that it causes kind of insecure people. In other words, if they can't count on somebody being there when they need somebody to be there, then they're not trusting that their needs are going to be met. And hence, this tends or can lead to people being needy. Instead of being confident that their partner is going to do what they said they're going to do and be who they appear to be, they're not trusting. They may be more clingy, they may be more needy, and not as confident in the fact that people can be trusted. And a lot of times we have no idea where this comes from. And it doesn't always mean that children were neglected. It could just be that parents had a different school of thought when that child was an infant and thought that they were doing the best thing by letting the child cry a lot and learn to comfort itself and do all those kinds of things. But here in 2025, take my word, the best thing that you can do to create a secure adult is to make a strong child. Hold the child. Hug the child. If it's an infant, put it skin to skin. It loves that, especially in the newborn stages. I tell moms and dads when they're going home for the first 2 weeks, just lay around and look at the baby and smell the baby, because they have a new baby smell that goes away. And just let them know that you love them and become a couple. That's with the first child. The most important thing that the child needs is to know that this new world, this brave new world, from the place that it came, where it was dark and wet and very contained, to this noisy, very light, very unfamiliar environment, is that when it needs something, and it can't really articulate or say what those needs are, but when it's hungry, somebody feeds it. When it's wet, somebody changes it. And when it doesn't know what it needs, somebody picks them up or picks her up and gives her a hug and holds her and just loves on her and lets her know that everything is going to be all right. And this is what moms and dads can do in the first year of their child's life to help them understand that the world is a safe place and they can trust that people will be there when they need them and that everything is going to be okay. So if you've been wondering what you can do with your baby in this first year, then definitely buy into Erikson's stages of development. The first one where they're getting trust versus mistrust, and make sure that they develop a sense of hope in the future, and belief that comes from knowing that people will be there to help them, as opposed to waiting and hoping that someone's going to come and being left unattended. The crisis that's created, there's going to be some times that your baby's going to cry. There's going to be some times that they don't get fed right away. It's most of the time. Do all that you can do when you can do it, and I'm sure it's going to be okay. I encourage you to Google Erik Erikson, Stages of Development. It's a very interesting theory that will help you, and you don't have to read a lot of books, but it'll give you some guidelines as your child or children, and maybe even yourself or your parents or your siblings, what they're going through, and you can start to make your own analogies and see if it's really applicable. Like I said, it's not going to be everybody that you're going to find had these intense experiences, but remember, everybody sensitizes situations differently. So that's my tip for you today on how to create a spouse in the future, or a business partner, or a friend who is trusting and has a lot of hope and faith, as opposed to a person who is not trusting and is very suspicious. You can get them started on the right road. And now that you've listened to this tip, I'm sure you will. Thanks, and listen to my other tip if you're having your second child, so that you can know how that second child should be introduced specifically when you bring your newborn baby home. I'm Nana G. Please pass this on to anyone that you think it would help. My goal is to do that. Help build strong families so we can have strong communities and be happier. Take care, and thank you for watching.